As a kid, I was told a story by my father that still sticks with me to this very day, mainly because of the fact that it was true. And on top of all that, the memories of the accident and what happened on that day still haunt me, and sometimes I'll wake up in cold sweats just thinking about it. Anyway, the tale really goes as follows. As a kid, I heard the story from my father after his hiking expeditions eventually came across an old cabin, around about 16th century, pretty old, and for some reason, when walking past, he decided to go in and basically have a look at it. It had no furniture and was completely empty, but the strangest thing about it was a metal trapdoor that led to something. But before my dad could even open it to see what was down there, he just heard a strange scream and ran away. The creepiest part of his story, however, is when he turned back after the small expedition, he saw something, or someone, grab the door and shut it. Now, that's the true kind of story, but my dad, when I was a bit younger, used to play it up to make it even more scarier. For example, something then came chasing after him out of the dark forest, and because of that, that was enough to make me pretty much terrified. Needless to say, my mother wasn't at all pleased, but regardless, it was pretty fun looking back on the memories. And when I got a bit older, I decided to go down that trail and basically have a look and try and find this old cabin, or farmhouse. The day went normally at first, but as I went on throughout the day, I can remember thinking about that story playing through my mind, and I even asked my dad during the day what trail it was. He then told me which specific one it was, and it was actually close to my house. So, I followed the woodlands area and then came to a part of the woods where a gravelly path then led off into nothing but wilderness. I followed it, but before I did, I remembered that, hey, one of my friends might want to join me, considering one of my friends is actually quite interested in the paranormal and spooky stuff in general. Now, this was around the early 2000s, so maybe around 2001-ish, and I only had a basic phone. I called my friend, and to say the least, he was pretty ecstatic. So, needless to say, he eventually arrived, although slightly later than I anticipated. And when he did arrive, he screamed a gutturally loud, "Hey bro, how's it going? I got all the stuff ready as well. As soon as I heard you tell me about that story, of course I was going to join you." There were an odd couple of people that were staring at him from the pavement, and obviously I was a little bit annoyed that he just screamed that out in the middle of everyone else, and basically doing what their daily routine consists of. Now, for those that are curious, my friend's name is Mike, and he was quite a comical guy, but as I stated, he also loves anything to do with the paranormal. So naturally, it wouldn't be a surprise that he'd be there this quickly, just to bring 2 flashlights and an entire bag, probably with food and other things like first aid. He really was coming prepared, which, looking back on everything, kind of embarrassed me, given the fact that I didn't even take the time to prepare a damn flashlight or any food, which basically shows how ecstatic I was and carefree. As soon as Mike got in within arm's reach, the first thing I did in a more happy manner is basically put a hand on his shoulder and say, "Hey dude, next time don't scream out what we're going to be doing, because mainly that's something that only we should know." "Right," he said. "I'm sorry, it's just I'm pretty hype right now. Given the fact that we're gonna be going into the woods and looking for a cabin, I believe you said. I think it was haunted, right?" "Yes, it is, I think," I then replied with skepticism in my voice. "Anyway, we should probably get going. given the fact that soon it'll already be noontime, and considering the fact that it's October, it's probably gonna get a lot darker outside. Right behind you, Mike said, with enthusiasm and both a sort of hype in his voice. I won't bore you with the other unnecessary details, but what you need to know then is that eventually, after walking through the woods, we did actually find a rundown old cabin. We went in, but strangely enough, there was some pieces of furniture. Mainly just weathered old couches and chairs with some table equipment and other things. I even saw in the kitchen, or what could be called a kitchen, some old-fashioned cooking appliances of sorts. And even stranger, the trap door. It was just there. It stuck out like a sore thumb, and the metal had rusted almost to the point where it was nothing but a mixture of brown, orange, and slight tinges of yellow. My friend immediately pointed this out, however, and naturally, in his loud and ecstatic voice, he shouted, "Hey dude, I think I found that trap door you're on about." I then walked on over to where it was, and immediately started the daring of which one of us would open it. Mike, then being perhaps the most scaredest of the two of us, decided he was going to let this one out, while I opened the cellar door. A sharp creaking sound then emitted from its hinges. It was so old that as soon as we opened it to the fullest extent, the trap door, or the cellar door rather, just completely snapped on its hinges, which then rendered the thing broken. Now, listen, I know Mike loves paranormal stuff, but it didn't mean he wasn't safe from being called a bit of a chicken. So naturally, when I said, hey, we should go down there, he clung to me almost like I was the Goliath protector of this small group. We then made our way down what appeared to be a really small ladder with very steep steps. If you weren't careful, you could probably fall all the way down. And what really amazed me is that this strange path that led down was actually quite a ways further than we thought. It wasn't just like a solid basement, it had levels almost. Mike then said to me, "Hey Sam, doesn't this building remind you a little bit of the catacombs, given the fact that it's so..." Before he could finish his sentence, he was immediately cut off by some kind of loud bang, and it was very loud that it echoed throughout most of the levels of the strange cellar-like place. I eventually made my way down, with Mike cowering behind me, and basically mocked him just a tiny bit for being so scared. I basically said something along the lines of, "Hey buddy, next time if we're going on a paranormal expedition, you should probably warn me first to, take some precautions if you ever get too scared and decide to run off with no help." "Ha ha, very funny," Mike said. "Look, Sam, can we just get this over with? I really don't want to be stuck in some old building and nevertheless get lost. That's not something on my to-do list. Don't worry, we'll get our way out of here," I said, "but first, I have to explore at least a bit of this place. Do me a favor, actually. Stay here, and if I ever need help, I'll yell out your name and you just yell back. That way, at least we'll never get lost." "Fine by me," Mike said. I then ventured into the darker array of tunnels, as what I saw next was almost unbelievable. A large chasm-like place stood before me. A giant deep hole that just went deeper and deeper down. But there was no ladders to climb down there. This looked like it could have potentially have been some kind of catacomb-like place. Maybe. I looked around for a while in the darkness, and when my eyes adjusted a bit, I saw a door, although it was further around the giant circle. I grabbed my flashlight that Mike gave me and decided to look around. Now, even the flashlight didn't do the place justice. It was dark. I still had to cling to the wall almost just to feel where I was and be careful enough not to fall into the deep black abyss that pretty much lay right before me. I found my way to the other side and then opened the door. There was another set of tunnels that was then blocked off by rubble and 2 doors on each side. I went over and looked in, and they seemed to be fully fledged rooms, with beds adorning the place. I then peered my head into the other room, and it was just like the other one, beds surrounding the whole area. However, in one of the beds, I saw what appeared to be the blankets move, as if someone was sleeping there, and their chest was rising and declining, as if to show they were breathing. I probably at the time just thought this was a homeless person, which sounds stupid, I know, but I just left it and went over to the rubble to investigate it. And when I did, I noticed that the rubble, surprisingly enough, was blocking a door that I could still open, but I'd have to somehow pry away the rubble. So, using all my strength I could muster, I put 1 foot near to where the door was, the bit that was only just a tiny bit open. I managed to squeeze into this small gap, and then I pushed all my body weight against the door, which actually worked, and managed to open it slightly. I was able to look around in this other room, and what I saw in there was enough to traumatize any person, and to this very day causes me to break out into cold sweats. I saw a table and a chair. However, someone was sitting in the chair, but it wasn't a person, or at least it couldn't have been. It looked like a person and had the general physique, but the problem was, it was unhumanly tall, with white glowing eyes, and when it turned, it made a cracking sound, so loud that it echoed throughout the entirety of the tunnel. It then focused all of its attention on me, as if I shouldn't have been there, and I knew I shouldn't have been anyway. The thing then let out the cry of a madman. I proceeded to run across the halls, screaming for Mike, just saying, "Please, Mike, please, you gotta help me. Where are you?" I heard a faint voice call back. It was Mike's, but it was heavily muffled, and to be honest, it was almost hard to hear, given the fact that that thing was screeching while chasing me throughout the corridor. "Hey Mike, listen to me," I screamed. "I'm gonna need you to..." But before I could finish the sentence, I tripped and fell. I immediately shuffled towards my back so that I was facing the way of what appeared to be the horrid thing, but there was nothing there. To my relief and both astonishment, I took the time and ran. I booked it, and when I looked back just for 1 second, I saw it again. Except this time, it was holding something tiny in its hands. It looked like a man. One that wasn't moving. Needless to say, I then got up on my feet despite hurting my legs quite a bit and running until I reached the end of the tunnel. I then saw Mike and told him to get up there immediately because we are leaving. We then eventually made our way back up to the cabin and basically grabbed the trapdoor, shoving it back into place, as if that was going to protect us from it now. Mike then hollered, "So what did you see down there?" You kind of scared me for a moment. I basically had to pull a lie and say, it's nothing. Never mind, I just thought maybe we should go back. Mike clearly knew there was something up, but he didn't want to press the matter. I then looked down at my leg as pain suddenly struck it, as I had to basically stumble to the ground for a brief second. I pulled up one of my jeans to realize that a deep cut had been gouged into my leg. There was no visible bone, but it definitely cut deep enough to see some muscle and blood that was pouring out of it, like almost what would happen when a balloon got popped, or a water balloon of sorts. Mike helped me up, and we hobbled home. My dad and mum were rightfully so pretty worried, but I just told them that I fell while doing some activity. I don't think my dad bought it though. He could tell something else happened. To this very day, I still don't know whether or not he truly knew. Fast forward a couple of years, though, everything is going pretty good. I have a beautiful wife and an adorable kid, who I named Alex. He's a very adventurous soul, and God bless him. He always wants to know what is everything and whether or not he can explore anything. It's kind of funny and cute whenever he does one of his misadventures, whether that means going outside and playing or just wandering about the home. I don't live that far from my parents' house. They're doing okay. Obviously, they need a bit of help now, but for the most part, they're doing alright, which I'm glad to hear. Now, as far as the story goes, I don't think I'll be telling my son anytime soon, given the fact that he's already proved to be a bit of an adventurous type, and I don't want him going out and getting hurt like I did, especially coming face to face with whatever entity that was. I don't understand as well what was up with that trap door and the catacombs-like place and the tunnels and the guy that was sleeping in there. Perhaps he was safeguarding that creature? I don't know. But what I do know for sure is that I won't be telling my son about that anytime soon. And I hope to God that that thing stays where it is. The door is broken, so at any moment that thing could let loose. And the scary part is, the other couple days ago, I actually went back to view the place. And when I went in to view the trapdoor, it was nowhere to be found. So, unless that thing is still there, and maybe some hikers themselves went in to view it, and probably got eaten by that thing, I don't know. But it gives me chills to think that that thing is still out there, and that one day, it could come looking for us.